What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Wednesday, March 3rd. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 10-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. Now this is a FanDuel play. I like Shake Milton from the Philadelphia 76ers playing the Utah Jazz, who have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing point guards, but Shake Milton has averaged 22.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 25 minutes per game with a 24% usage rate. He scored 35, 29, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 29, 31, and 19 minutes. He's projected at 23.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.6 times value. He's only $4,200 FanDuel salary, but he's $800 more on DraftKings. So I love that FanDuel price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 227.5 points scored in this game. So I like Shake Milton on FanDuel here versus the Utah Jazz. Okay, another point guard that I like is Dennis Schroeder from the LA Lakers playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the absolute worst defense overall, and they give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Dennis Schroeder has averaged 26.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. He scored 30, 24, and 30 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 38, 25, and 31 minutes. He's projected at 28.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.1 times value. He's $5,500 FanDuel salary and $400 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game, and Schroeder has scored 27, 43, 25, and 21 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Kings. It's a great matchup, so I like Dennis Schroeder here versus the Sacramento Kings. Okay, now this play just kind of caught my eye here. It's a high risk, high reward play, but I think he's worth a shot here. I like Tomas Satoransky from the Chicago Bulls playing the New Orleans Pelicans, who have the 6th worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Tomas Satoransky has averaged 17.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 21 minutes per game with a 14% usage rate. He scored 15, 14, and 26 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 19, 20, and 25 minutes. He's projected at 18.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.1 times value. He's $3,700 FanDuel salary and $200 more on DraftKings. Now, I like this play because he's a low salary, high risk, high reward play. It's a great matchup, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 236.5 points scored in this game. So I like that it's a high scoring game. Definitely a lot of risk with this play, but if you need a value play, he's capable of getting 25 plus fantasy points, which he would crush value. So I like Tomas Satoransky as a high risk, high reward play here versus the New Orleans Pelicans. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. Here's a value play for you. I like Ty Jerome from the Oklahoma City Thunder playing the Dallas Mavericks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing shooting guards. Ty Jerome has averaged 24.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 26 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 19 and 31 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 29 and 22 minutes. He's projected at 24.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 6.9 times value. He's 3,600 FanDuel salary and 300 less on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, especially on DraftKings. He's a super low salary value play here. There's a lot of risk in this play as well. We don't have a big sample size with Ty Jerome, so you're always going to run a risk when you don't have a big sample size. But I think he's definitely worth a shot because of the upside that we saw. He's playing over 20 minutes the last 2 games. So I like Ty Jerome here versus the Dallas Mavericks.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, I got another value play for you. I like Talen Horton-Tucker from the LA Lakers playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the absolute worst defense overall, and they give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Talen Horton-Tucker has averaged 15.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 17 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. He scored 18, 23, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 18, 16, and 16 minutes. He's projected at 25 fantasy points here tonight. That's 6.4 times value. He's 3,900 FanDuel salary and 500 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. Now, he scored 30 fantasy points in his last game versus the Kings, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup here, so I like Talen Horton-Tucker here versus the Sacramento Kings. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Brandon Ingram from the New Orleans Pelicans playing the Chicago Bulls, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and although they've been pretty good versus opposing small forwards, Brandon Ingram has averaged 39.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 35 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He scored 37, 40, and 33 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 38, 36, and 36 minutes. He's projected at 41.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's 7,800 FanDuel salary and 600 more on DraftKings. Now, he scored 33, 31, 58, and 37 fantasy points in the last 4 games versus the Bulls. I think he's got a great chance of hitting value on FanDuel. He only needs about 38 fantasy points to hit 5 times value or more on FanDuel. I really like this play. He's playing a ton of minutes. I think he scores 40 fantasy points or more. So I like Brandon Ingram here versus the Chicago Bulls. Another small forward that I like is Harrison Barnes from the Sacramento Kings playing the LA Lakers, who have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing small forwards, but Harrison Barnes has averaged 31 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 36 minutes per game with an 18% usage rate. And he's been on fire, scoring 41, 50, and 42 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 41, 40, and 35 minutes. He's projected at 32.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.7 times value. He's 6,800 FanDuel salary and 200 more on DraftKings. Now, this play, you're just kind of trying to ride the hot hand here. He's been playing a ton of minutes. He's been productive. And he only needs about 35 fantasy points or more to get you 5 times value or more. So I like Harrison Barnes here versus the LA Lakers. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? I got another value play for you. I like Nicholas Claxton from the Brooklyn Nets playing the Houston Rockets, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing power forwards. Nicholas Claxton has averaged 21.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 15 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. He scored 34, 8, and 33 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 17, 12, and 15 minutes. So this guy is getting it done in not a lot of minutes. I mean, he had that 8 in there, but 34 and 33 fantasy points, only playing 17 and 15 minutes. That's quite the production. So he's projected at 21.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value on FanDuel, where he's 4,100 FanDuel salary, but he's 800 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. If this guy can put up 30 fantasy points and more than 30 fantasy points in 15 minutes, and he's only 3,300 DraftKings salary, I love that. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game. So I like Nicholas Claxton here versus the Houston Rockets.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, another power forward that I like is Kristaps Porzingis from the Dallas Mavericks playing the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have the 4th worst defense overall, and they give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Kristaps Porzingis has averaged 37 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He scored 39 and 36 fantasy points in his last 2 games, playing 32 and 25 minutes. He's projected at 36.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.7 times value. He's 7,800 FanDuel salary and 400 more on DraftKings. So he scored 37 fantasy points in his last game versus the Thunder. He's got a great matchup here tonight. So I like Kristaps Porzingis here versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Miles Turner from the Indiana Pacers playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. And although they've been pretty good versus opposing centers, Miles Turner has averaged 34.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 21, 28, and 42 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 27, 33, and 37 minutes. He's projected at 34.9 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.4 times value. He's 6,500 FanDuel salary, and he's 500 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. Now, he scored 40, 29, and 32 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. Vegas thinks there's going to be 216.5 points scored in this game. I think he makes a fantastic DraftKings play. So I like Miles Turner here versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. Okay, another center that I like is DeAndre Jordan from the Brooklyn Nets playing the Houston Rockets, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing centers. DeAndre Jordan has averaged 22.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 23 minutes per game with a 13% usage rate. He scored 38, 12, and 20 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 35, 13, and 25 minutes. He's projected at 25.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $5,100 FanDuel salary and $600 more on DraftKings. So this is more of a FanDuel play for me. He scored 23, 19, 45, and 26 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Rockets. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game. So I would go DeAndre Jordan on FanDuel and Miles Turner on DraftKings. But I like both of those guys, and I like DeAndre Jordan here versus the Houston Rockets.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.